Conclusions of Mendelian inheritance. Mendel's conclusions were based on three laws: law of dominance, law of segregation, and law of independent assortment. All the experiments which were performed by the Gregor Mendel in mid of 19th century, the result of those experiments was in the form of three laws: law of segregation, law of dominance, and law of independent assortment. What were the conclusions of law of dominance? Law of dominance states that in a cross where two plants, they are pure breeds, as a result of the cross of such a plants, one of the trait will disappear. If there are two traits, one of the trait will appear and one of the trait will disappear. The trait that will appear will be dominant over the trait which will disappear. So this is called as law of dominance. Like if we take the example of seeds, in case of seeds, smooth seeds and wrinkle seeds. Smooth seeds, they are completely dominant over the wrinkle seeds. So in case of law of dominance, there is no third phenotype. Either the seeds, the phenotype of the seed will be dominant, or the phenotype of the seed will be recessive. So there is clear relationship between the dominance and the recessive. So this is law of dominance. In case of second law of inheritance, which was proposed, that law of segregation. During the law of segregation, it states that during the process of gametogenesis, the gametes, they separate from each other and they are independently segregated, and during the process of fertilization, these gametes, they unite with each other. So law of segregation states that during the process of gametogenesis, the gametes, they separate from each other. Here the gametes means we can take the example of alleles, that alleles, they will separate from each other during the process of gamete formation, and the alleles, they will join with each other during the process of fertilization. So that was the second law which was proposed, which is also called as law of segregation. The third law that was proposed, formulated by the Gregor Mendel in mid of 19th century, that was law of independent assortment. Law of independent assortment states that if there are two genes and the segregation of the gametes of those two genes, that is independent from each other, they will not inherit in the form of a unit. Instead, there will be a independent segregation, because this phenomena is explained in the form of dependent segregation and independent segregation. But in case of law of independent segregation, it states that the gametes, they will be separate from each other, and that separation or assortment will be independent from each other. So these were the three laws, or we can say that it was the conclusion of the Mendelian inheritance.